You know, dear friend, gardens have always felt like places where the world slows down, where the morning light settles softly across the soil, and nothing dangerous seems to exist at all. That's why it still surprises so many of us when we hear stories like the one that recently made headlines out of Pennsylvania. A quiet grandmother, someone who'd spent her whole life tending tomatoes, herbs, and the little joys of each season suddenly facing a $5,000 fine for growing a simple fruit she didn't know was restricted. It's unsettling, isn't it? The idea that something as innocent as planting a tree could bring trouble to your own backyard. But laws around certain fruits exist, not because gardeners are doing anything wrong in spirit, but because a handful of plants carry risks most of us would never imagine on our own. Some threaten the health of people we love. Some endanger the farms that feed entire regions. Some reshape the land so aggressively they drown out the forests and fields we grew up walking through. And many of these, truth be told, don't look dangerous at all. They look like beauty. They look like abundance. They look like something you'd be proud to nurture on a sunny afternoon. So today, as we settle into this gentle walk through knowledge, let's explore the fruits. America restricts not in fear, but in understanding. My hope is that by the end, you'll feel more confident, more informed, and more protected, because when it comes to gardening, wisdom is the best tool we have. It can feel surprising, even unfair, to imagine that a fruit, something grown with patience, sun, and care, might be considered dangerous enough to restrict. But when you look a little closer, dear friend, you start to understand that these laws were shaped not to punish gardeners, but to protect the delicate balance our communities depend on. Some fruits contain natural toxins that our bodies simply can't handle, even in small amounts. Others act like silent carriers of plant diseases, strong enough to devastate entire harvests across multiple states. And still others grow with such relentless determination that they push out native plants, erase habitats for birds, and change the soil itself in ways that can't be undone. I once met an older couple in Virginia who kept a small orchard behind their cottage. They told me how back in the 1970s, they ordered a fruit tree from a catalog simply because the blossoms were beautiful. They planted it, watered it, loved it, and years later discovered it was considered invasive in their county. Their intentions were gentle, but the plant's nature wasn't. They spent months working with local officials to remove it safely. The wife told me something I've never forgotten. Gardening teaches you that not everything that grows belongs. That lesson shows up again and again in the stories behind these restricted fruits. Some have deep cultural roots in other countries, but cause medical emergencies here. Some once seemed helpful, even celebrated, only to later reveal how much harm they could do when left to spread freely. And some feel like contradictions, sweet berries that poison livestock, fragrant hedges that suffocate forests, beautiful trees that turn fields unworkable. As gardeners, especially those of us who've tended land for decades, it can be hard to imagine a plant doing such damage. Yet nature has its own rules, its own instincts, and sometimes its own quiet dangers. So as we step into this list together, think of it not as forbidden knowledge, but as protective wisdom. A way to keep your garden safe, your home, legal, and the landscapes we love strong for the next generation. If you've ever traveled through the Caribbean or watched a documentary about island cooking, you may have seen ackee, a fruit that opens like a bright red smile under the tropical sun. It looks cheerful, almost inviting, the kind of thing you'd expect to taste sweet and comforting. But ackee is one of those reminders that nature can hide danger behind beauty. Inside its soft flesh lurks a toxin so powerful that even experienced farmers in Jamaica handle it with extreme caution. Here in the United States, officials decided long ago that the risk was simply too great. Fresh ackee isn't just frowned upon, it's banned outright, a line drawn to protect people from a danger most wouldn't recognize until it was far too late. I once heard from a retired nurse in Florida who told me about a patient she cared for during her early career. He had eaten improperly prepared ackee brought home by a friend who didn't understand how toxic unripened fruit could be. She said the symptoms came swiftly: nausea, tremors, confusion, and the medical team struggled because the poisoning didn't behave like anything common in American hospitals. That experience stayed with her for decades. "Food is supposed to nourish us," she said softly, "but some plants ask us to know their rules before we welcome them into our kitchens." Her story isn't shared to frighten you, dear friend, but to remind us that boundaries around certain fruits exist because they've taken lives before. And what makes ackee particularly concerning is how unpredictable it is. You can't smell the danger. You can't see it. You can't feel it until the toxin has already begun its work. That's why the FDA treats it more strictly than almost any other fruit on this list. As gardeners, we often trust our instincts: touch the soil, examine a leaf, taste a berry. But ackee demands something different. It reminds us that even the most vibrant fruit may carry secrets that require respect, distance, and laws designed to keep us safe. Knowing this truth doesn't take away the fruit's beauty. It simply places that beauty in the proper light, with the understanding that not every plant is meant for every soil. Black currants have always carried a certain charm, haven't they? Older gardeners sometimes remember them as the berries their grandparents cooked into jams, or the flavor tucked inside candies brought home from small-town general stores. For decades, these deep purple clusters were part of American gardens from Maine to Illinois, grown not just for their rich taste, but for their sense of tradition. That's why it feels almost strange to learn that this once beloved fruit became the center of one of the earliest and most forceful agricultural restrictions in U.S. history. The problem wasn't the berry itself, but a fungus it quietly carried, one that devastated white pine forests, the backbone of the American lumber industry in the Northeast and Midwest. I once spoke with a retired forestry worker from New Hampshire who shared a memory from the late 1960s. He recalled entire hillsides dotted with dying pines, their bark-splitting needles browning long before autumn touched the forest. People thought it was pollution or drought, he told me, but so much of it traced back to a little berry nobody suspected. When the government finally understood the connection, the response was swift and blunt. Inspectors visited homesteads, nurseries were restricted from selling the plants, and states created strict zones where growing black currants was illegal. For many families, it felt like losing a piece of their heritage, a berry that lived in recipes, memories, even the scent of holiday preserves simmering on the stove. And yet, as painful as that shift was, it teaches an important lesson about gardening within a shared ecosystem. A single plant can carry consequences far beyond the fence line where it's lovingly tended. Today, some areas allow disease-resistant currant varieties, but many northeastern states still enforce bans to protect their forests. And countless gardeners never realize the shrub they may stumble across on an old property line could once have threatened thousands of acres of timber. It reminds us, dear friend, that the plants of our childhood are not always the plants of our future, and that caring for the land sometimes means letting go of what was once familiar in service of what still lives around us. Miracle fruit is one of those curiosities that almost feels like it belongs in a storybook. A small red berry, gentle in appearance, yet capable of briefly rewriting how your taste buds interpret the world. You eat one, then suddenly lemons taste like sweet lemonade, vinegar becomes mild, and tart fruit softens into something almost sugary. It's delightful at first, a playful trick of nature. But that trick is exactly what makes officials cautious. In a world where taste often warns us that something is spoiled or unsafe to eat, any plant that masks those signals carries unintended risks, especially for children or older gardeners whose senses may already be more delicate than they once were. A widower I met years ago in California told me a story that explains this concern better than any regulation. During a visit to West Africa in the 1980s, he tried miracle fruit at a local farm. "I thought it was magic," he said, smiling. But later that evening, he tasted a stew that, unknown to him, had begun to spoil. The berry's effect lingered, turning the sourness into sweetness, and by midnight, he was ill enough to need medical care. He recovered, thankfully, but he told me he never forgot how easily enthusiasm clouded caution. "It's a lovely plant," he said, "just not a wise one for someone like me to grow at home." In the United States, miracle fruit is not banned everywhere, but places like California, with strict laws meant to protect crops and consumers, make it difficult to import or cultivate. Customs agents seize it routinely at airports because travelers often don't realize plants with unusual properties fall under agricultural scrutiny. And while the berry itself may seem harmless, the possibility of misusing or misunderstanding its effects is enough for regulators to step in. Nature gives us marvels, dear friend. But sometimes those marvels come with fine print. For gardeners who value safety and clarity, miracle fruit serves as a gentle reminder that not every botanical wonder belongs in a backyard where taste should remain an honest guide. There's something especially troubling about a plant that goes from beloved to banned within a single lifetime. And the calorie pear is a perfect example of that unsettling transition. For decades, this tree was a symbol of tidy American neighborhoods. White blossoms glowing like frothy clouds, each spring branches shaped neatly fruit, so small most people hardly noticed it. In the 1960s and 70s, agricultural agencies even encouraged homeowners to plant them, touting their fast growth, disease resistance, and ornamental beauty. Families proudly lined their driveways with them, believing they were adding charm and value to the land. But as the years rolled on, the truth slowly emerged. The calorie pear wasn't content to stay within the fences we placed around it. I once met a man in Ohio who inherited a small property from his aunt. She had planted 2 calorie pears decades earlier, seeing them as a sign of refinement in her little garden. When he took over the land, he noticed seedlings appearing far from the original trees along fence lines, pasture edges, even in a neighboring empty lot. He didn't think much of it until a conservation worker visited the area and explained how birds spread the seeds widely and how quickly those seeds transformed into thorny, impenetrable thickets. "I felt embarrassed," he told me quietly, as if my aunt's kindness had somehow become a burden for the community. Removing the trees cost him more than he expected, both in time and expense. But he said it taught him a lifelong lesson about listening to the land before assuming a plant's beauty means it belongs. The invasive nature of the calorie pear is unlike most ornamental trees. Once established, its seedlings grow with staggering speed. The thorns, long, rigid, and surprisingly sharp puncture tractor tires, injure livestock and make certain fields impossible to use. Entire acres in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, and parts of the Midwest have turned into dense, tangled forests of calorie pear, shutting out sunlight and choking native species beneath their canopy. Many states that once promoted the tree now ban it completely, urging residents to remove existing ones before they spread further. It's one of the clearest reminders in gardening history that good intentions aren't always enough to protect a landscape. Sometimes what begins as a decorative choice becomes an ecological story we didn't expect to write. Autumn olive is one of those plants that seems harmless at first glance. Its berries are bright and cheerful. Its silver-speckled leaves shimmer beautifully in the afternoon sun. And for years, people believed they were doing a kindness by planting it. It was introduced intentionally, after all, promoted for erosion control and wildlife support. But nature, as we both know well, has a quiet way of revealing the full truth over time. What began as a helpful shrub soon proved to be a force that changed landscapes far beyond what anyone expected. Autumn olive grows fast, produces hundreds of thousands of berries each year, and spreads with a determination that native plants simply can't keep up with. Its roots alter the soil by fixing nitrogen, shifting the chemistry so dramatically that many American species adapted to leaner earth can no longer survive beside it. A hiker I met in Wisconsin once described watching a hillside transform in the span of a decade. When he first moved to the area in the early 2000s, the slope was filled with wildflower sumac and patches of open meadow where deer grazed in the early morning. But as years passed, autumn olive crept in at the edges, a shrub here, another there, until eventually the hillside became an almost solid wall of metallic green. It was like the land changed personality, he told me. The flowers vanished. The birds that depended on those flowers moved elsewhere. And the soil beneath the dense thicket became so altered that restoring the original habitat would require years of labor and significant cost. His story isn't rare. Across Connecticut, Wisconsin, and parts of Virginia, officials now warn homeowners about how swiftly autumn olive takes hold often, without gardeners noticing, until it's far too late. States have been fighting back with everything they can: herbicide programs, volunteer removal crews, controlled burns, educational campaigns. But when a single plant produces up to 200,000 seeds per year, the challenge becomes monumental. Birds adore the berries and scatter the seeds for miles. Landowners are sometimes shocked to learn they're responsible for removal costs, even if they never planted the shrub themselves. For older gardeners like us who have witnessed changing landscapes over many decades, autumn olive is a reminder that not all greenery is gentle, and not all berries are blessings. Some plants whisper their intentions softly at first, only to show their true strength once roots have found their grip. Understanding these dangers helps us protect the wild beauty we still cherish: the meadows, forests, and open spaces that give our communities breath. If you've ever picked wild blackberries on a warm summer afternoon, you know the quiet pleasure of it. At that moment when the juice stains your fingertips and the air smells like sun-warmed fruit. Himalayan blackberry offers that same sweetness, only bigger, juicier, almost too perfect to resist. But beneath that tempting charm is a plant so aggressive that entire homesteads in the Pacific Northwest have been swallowed by it. This isn't the gentle blackberry many of us grew up gathering along old fence lines. Himalayan blackberry grows up to 20 feet in a single season, sending out thick canes armed with thorns sharp enough to pierce tractor tires. Once it takes hold, it forms dense walls of vegetation that smother everything in their path. Small trees, barns, abandoned cars, even the memories of the land beneath. A woman I met in Oregon told me a story that stays with me even now. When she and her husband bought their first home in the early 1990s, the backyard held the remnants of an old picnic area. A rusted swing set, a few forgotten tools, the foundation stones of a long-gone shed. She remembered thinking how charmingly nostalgic it all looked. But by the time her grandchildren were born, the Himalayan blackberry had overtaken nearly every inch of it. The swing set disappeared entirely beneath a ripple of thorny vines. The old stone foundation gone. It was like watching time get erased, she said. They hired a removal crew, but the brambles returned the next year stronger than before. Only after multiple seasons of careful clearing, digging, and ongoing vigilance did they begin to reclaim the space again. States like Oregon, Washington, and Idaho devote millions every year to fighting this invasive blackberry. But its resilience makes total control nearly impossible. The plant reproduces by seed and by tip rooting. When a cane touches the ground, it simply starts a new plant, effortlessly cloning itself across a field. Livestock can't graze near it. Pets get injured by the thorns, and property values often fall when large areas become impassable. For gardeners in the Pacific Northwest, spotting a new blackberry cane isn't a delight, but an urgent warning. As lovely as those berries taste, the price of letting the plant spread unchecked is far steeper than a bowl of summer sweetness. Himalayan blackberry reminds us that even the most delicious gifts from the garden sometimes ask for distance and deep respect before we welcome them into our lives. Out in the American West, water is more than a resource, it's a lifeline. Anyone who has lived through a long summer in Colorado, Utah, or New Mexico knows how precious each gallon can be. That's why Russian olive, with its soft silver leaves and modest little fruits, has become such a serious concern for gardeners and landowners in drought-prone states. At first glance, it doesn't look threatening at all. Birds enjoy the berries, the branches shimmer beautifully at sunset, and the tree seems to thrive even in poor soil. But beneath that resilience lies a deep thirst. Russian olive consumes far more water than native plants, drawing it from streams' groundwater and irrigation channels until nearby vegetation begins to wither. Farms that already struggle to keep crops alive find themselves battling a tree that quietly drains the moisture they depend on. A rancher from northern Colorado once shared a story that captures this reality perfectly. His family had tended the same stretch of land for nearly a century. His grandfather watered cattle there, his father built fences along the creek, and he grew up fishing in the slow, cool water that wound gently through their property. But over time, he noticed the creek shrinking. Summers were always dry, but this was different. The water vanished earlier each year. When conservation experts visited, they pointed to the dense stands of Russian olive that had crept along the banks, their roots pulling water so aggressively that native cottonwoods and willows were dying in place. Removing the trees took weeks of labor, and even then, new shoots emerged stubbornly from the stumps. It felt like trying to reclaim a memory, he told me. Like the land was asking us to fight for what used to be normal. Russian olive also releases chemicals into the soil, preventing nearby plants from growing, a natural defense mechanism that transforms rich riverbanks into barren thickets. In states already struggling with drought, officials take these threats seriously. If a homeowner is found cultivating Russian olive in areas where it's banned, the law often requires mandatory removal, sometimes followed by a bill for the cleanup. Farmers who rely on shared irrigation systems worry constantly about losing water to infestations they didn't create. And for gardeners who love the West's delicate landscapes, the sagebrush valleys, the cottonwood-lined streams, the open plains that glow gold at dusk. Russian olive is a reminder of how quickly one species can reshape an entire region. It teaches us gently but firmly that protecting a home garden sometimes means thinking far beyond its fence line. Buckthorn is one of those plants you might walk past without giving a second thought. Its berries are small and dark, its leaves look ordinary enough, and it often blends right into the forest understory. But beneath that quiet appearance lies one of the most disruptive forces in northern woodlands. Buckthorn doesn't just grow, it overtakes. It leafs out earlier in spring than native plants and holds on to its greenery long after autumn has arrived, stealing precious sunlight from everything around it. Birds, unaware of the plant's long-term consequences, eat the laxative-rich berries and scatter the seeds for miles. Before anyone realizes what's happening, entire forests begin shifting toward a single dominant species, crowding out wildflowers, young saplings, and the habitats that once supported countless birds and insects. A birder from Minnesota once wrote to me describing a transformation she witnessed over the span of her retirement. She had spent years walking the same trails, carrying a small notebook to record warblers, finches, and sparrows. At first, she noticed fewer blooms in spring. Then she realized the songs she used to hear were thinning out as well. When she finally joined a volunteer group that surveyed the area, they confirmed her worries. Buckthorn had taken over huge sections of the forest. Beneath the shrubs, the soil was bare, no native seedlings, no insect-rich plants that birds depend on. "I used to bring my grandchildren here to teach them bird calls," she said softly. "Now I bring them here to teach them what happens when a plant goes unchallenged." The science behind buckthorn's dominance is startling. It releases chemicals into the soil that prevent other species from germinating, a kind of natural warfare known as allelopathy. Few plants can compete once buckthorn establishes itself, and the result is an ecological dead zone. Wildlife dwindles. Diversity collapses. Even the appearance of the woods changes, becoming darker, thicker, and eerily silent. States like Minnesota, Illinois, and Massachusetts now classify buckthorn as a major invasive threat, with laws requiring property owners to remove it when found. Many are surprised to learn that failure to address an infestation can result in fines or mandatory clearing at the owner's expense. For gardeners who value the quiet companionship of songbirds and the return of wildflowers each spring, buckthorn's story is a sobering reminder. The plants we choose or allow to linger shape more than our own backyards. They influence the creatures that visit the land, the way the seasons sound, and the health of forests future generations may never know without our care. Durian is a fruit that inspires strong reactions, even among people who adore gardening and trying new things. If you've ever traveled through Southeast Asia, you may have seen it displayed proudly in open markets, its spiky shell hiding a custard-like flesh that locals describe as rich, sweet, and unforgettable. But for many others, especially here in the United States, durian carries a far different reputation. One that has earned it bans in hotels, public transportation, apartment buildings, and even certain neighborhoods. The reason isn't toxicity or disease. It's the smell. A single ripe durian can release an odor so powerful and penetrating that it seeps through walls, clings to fabric, and spreads through ventilation systems like smoke. People describe it as everything from rotten onions to gasoline. And in several American cities, its scent has even triggered emergency evacuations when neighbors mistook it for a dangerous gas leak. A retired school teacher from Nevada once shared a story with me that captures the complexity of this fruit. She had visited Thailand years ago and grown fond of the taste, calling it strange but comforting. When she returned home, she bought a durian from a specialty market in Las Vegas and brought it back to her apartment building. Within an hour, a neighbor called building management to report a suspected gas leak. Soon, fire officials arrived, alarms blared, and dozens of residents gathered outside in confusion. When the truth finally came out, that the culprit was a fruit quietly resting on her kitchen counter, she felt embarrassed to the point of tears. "I didn't mean to disturb anyone," she told me. "I just wanted to taste a memory." After that incident, her building officially banned durian, and she never brought one home again. In tropical parts of the US, like southern Florida and Hawaii, some durian varieties face agricultural restrictions as well. Not because of their smell, but because they can harbor citrus greening disease, one of the most destructive illnesses threatening American citrus groves. This dual concern, both social and agricultural, makes durian a uniquely complicated plant for gardeners. While it isn't federally illegal, the combination of building codes, local ordinances, and import restrictions means many Americans simply avoid it. And perhaps that's wise. As gardeners, we're used to plants bringing comfort, calm, and beauty into our spaces. Durian, for all its loyal fans, brings something else entirely, a reminder that even the world's most cherished fruits can create discord when placed in the wrong environment. Common barberry is a plant that once felt right at home in American gardens. Its bright red berries added color to autumn hedges, and its thorny branches created natural borders long before manufactured fencing was common. Many older homes across the Northeast and Midwest still have barberry shrubs tucked into their foundation plantings, placed there generations ago by gardeners who appreciated their resilience and ornamental charm. But beneath that familiar beauty lies a threat most people never imagined. Common barberry serves as a host for wheat stem rust, a fungal disease capable of destroying entire harvests. In the early 1900s, when wheat was both a national food supply and a key export, this disease threatened the stability of entire farming communities. The government, recognizing the urgency, launched one of the largest eradication campaigns in agricultural history. I once spoke with a man from North Dakota who remembered his grandfather telling stories of those early campaigns. Inspectors went door to door, knocking politely, firmly asking families to remove any barberry they found. They were serious, his grandfather recalled. Not unkind, but serious because they knew what was at stake. Farms depended on wheat for livelihood, and towns depended on those farms. Barberry wasn't just a plant. It was a hidden doorway for a disease that could wipe out a season's worth of labor. As a child, he hadn't understood why something so small could create such worry. But as an adult farmer himself, he grew to appreciate how fragile agriculture can be, how a single unchecked pathogen can ripple across counties and states, shaping the fortunes of thousands. Today, the restrictions remain in place across major wheat-producing regions. Many gardeners are surprised to learn that some barberry species sold in garden centers are legal, while common barberry is not. The two look similar, and that confusion has led to more than a few homeowners unknowingly harboring a prohibited plant. One grandmother in Montana learned this the hard way. She inherited a barberry shrub from her mother's garden, a plant she had watered since childhood. When inspectors discovered it during a routine survey, she faced a fine of over $1,000. She wasn't angry, simply heartbroken. "It felt like losing a piece of my mother," she said. But she also understood why the rules existed. After all, her family's livelihood once depended on wheat too. For those of us who love gardening, common barberry teaches a thoughtful lesson. Not every beautiful plant belongs in every landscape. Sometimes the harm it carries is invisible, quiet, and far-reaching. In understanding that we honor not only our gardens, but the farmers whose work sustains the meals on our tables. At first glance, the trifoliate orange looks almost charming. Its small, fuzzy fruits resemble miniature citrus, and its tough, hardy branches seem well suited to the unpredictable weather of the American South. Decades ago, some gardeners even planted it as a living fence because its sharp 3-inch spines discouraged curious animals. But what makes this plant so concerning today isn't how it looks or how fiercely it grows. It's what it can carry without showing a single sign. Trifoliate orange is a silent host for deadly citrus diseases, including citrus canker and other pathogens that spread effortlessly to commercial groves. The danger lies in its resistance, while the trifoliate orange remains outwardly healthy. The trees around it, oranges, grapefruits, tangerines, can suffer devastating losses. A citrus grower from Georgia once told me how he learned this lesson in the hardest way. His neighbor had allowed several trifoliate orange shrubs to grow wild along the property line, unaware of the risk they posed. For years, nothing seemed amiss. Then one spring, the grower noticed unusual lesions on the leaves of his young orange trees. Leaves began dropping, branches weakened, and fruit yields plummeted. When agricultural inspectors traced the infection, they found that the trifoliate oranges had acted as a reservoir for the disease, quietly spreading it across the fence line. It was like watching a slow tide take over, he said. The cost of removing and replacing the infected trees was staggering, and the emotional toll was even heavier. Citrus farming wasn't just his livelihood. It was his family's heritage. Beyond disease, the trifoliate orange creates physical challenges as well. Its spines can puncture tractor tires, injure livestock, and make dense thickets nearly impossible to clear without specialized equipment. Wildlife spreads the seeds readily, allowing the shrub to take root in unmanaged areas where it becomes even more difficult to control. This combination, invisibly spreading disease and physically resisting removal, has led the USDA and multiple southern states to restrict or discourage its cultivation entirely. Gardeners living in citrus regions are urged to report sightings and avoid touching or attempting to remove the plants themselves, as improper handling can accelerate the spread of pathogens. For those of us who love the South's citrus groves, the scent of orange blossoms carried on warm breezes, the joy of picking fruit straight from the tree trifoliate orange serves as a quiet warning. Not every hardy, attractive plant is a blessing. Some protect themselves so well that they endanger everything around them. Understanding these risks isn't just about following rules. It's about preserving a tradition that has fed families, supported economies, and brought comfort to countless kitchen tables. Some fruits earn their reputations slowly over years of observation and caution. But the manchineal, often called the little apple of death, earned its name through centuries of painful encounters. Growing naturally along certain tropical coastlines, its small green fruits resemble harmless crab apples. They look inviting, especially to travelers unfamiliar with the landscape. Yet manchineal is one of the most dangerous plants in the Americas. A single bite can cause the throat to swell shut, bringing levels of agony that are difficult even to describe. But the danger doesn't end there. Standing beneath the tree during rain can cause blistering. Touching the bark can burn the skin. Burning the wood can send toxins into the air that may temporarily or permanently damage a person's eyesight. The entire tree, from root to leaf, is a quiet keeper of a potent chemical arsenal. A woman from Florida once shared a chilling memory from her first trip to the Caribbean in the late 1970s. She and her friends were strolling along a beach when they saw several tourists gathered under what looked like a perfectly normal shade tree during a light afternoon shower. Within minutes, the group began rushing out, some clutching their arms, others rubbing at their faces in confusion. Only later did she learn that the tree was a manchineal. The rain had washed toxins onto their skin. Though the group recovered, she remembered their shock how something so ordinary could cause so much distress. It taught me to look more closely at the world, she told me. Not everything welcoming is safe, and not everything dangerous looks frightening. Manchineal is strictly prohibited in U.S. territories like Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, where it grows naturally and must be carefully marked with warning signs. Officials paint the trunks with bright colors or post clear notices in multiple languages so visitors don't mistake them for shade trees. And still, each year, someone is hospitalized simply because they didn't know what they were touching. For gardeners, especially those who travel or dream of planting tropical species, manchineal stands as a powerful reminder that beauty and risk often coexist. As peaceful as our home gardens may feel, nature has its fierce side too. And the wisdom we gain from understanding it keeps us and the people we love protected. If your path ever takes you to a warm coastline where unfamiliar trees grow close to the sand, remember this story. Observe gently. Ask questions. Appreciate the beauty from a distance. Because knowledge, dear friend, is the truest form of safety nature offers us. Privet is one of those plants many of us remember fondly from childhood. Neatly clipped hedges lining suburban driveways, sweet-smelling blossoms in late spring, little black berries that birds seem to enjoy. For decades, privet signaled tidiness, order, and that special pride homeowners took in keeping their yards looking cared for. It framed church entrances, schoolyards, and quiet neighborhoods across the South. That's why it can feel almost unbelievable that this familiar hedge has become one of the region's most destructive, invasive species. A shrub now banned in states like Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. What once symbolized prosperity now represents ecological loss. Privet spreads with astonishing speed, swallowing roadsides and forest edges, reducing plant diversity by as much as 90% in some areas. Beneath its dense canopy, The soil grows dark and empty, unable to support the wildflowers and seedlings that once filled early spring with color. A man from Tennessee once shared a memory that captured this change vividly. He grew up near a wooded park where he and his siblings played hide-and-seek beneath tall oaks and maples. In those days, the forest floor was a live trillium in spring ferns unfurling in gentle curls, patches of sunlight dancing across the mossy logs. But decades later, when he returned with his grandchildren, he felt a pang of sadness. Almost every inch of the understory had transformed into a uniform wall of privet. The wildflowers were gone. The butterflies he used to chase with a jar in hand were nowhere to be seen. Even the songs of small woodland birds felt faint and scattered. It was like walking through a memory with all the color drained out, he said. And he was right. Privet doesn't just outgrow native plants. It outcompetes them for food, light, and space until the forest becomes eerily quiet. Biologists warn that forests dominated by privet support nearly 80% fewer native bird species. Insects that once lived on native foliage cannot survive on privet leaves, and without insects, the birds disappear. For states that value their natural heritage, this loss is more than aesthetic. It represents a collapse of entire ecosystems. Governments now spend millions annually cutting, burning, and removing privet from public lands, but it often returns unless carefully monitored. For gardeners, especially those who remember a time when privet seemed harmless, this story invites a shift in perspective. A plant can be beautiful and still be harmful. A hedge can look tidy and still unravel a forest. And sometimes, the most loving thing we can do for the landscapes we cherish is to choose plants that protect the balance nature worked so long to create. Starfruit is one of those fruits that looks almost too lovely to be real. Slice it open, and it forms a perfect golden star, bright as a summer ornament and just as cheerful. Many gardeners are drawn to it for that very reason: its beauty, its tropical charm, its sweet and tart flavor that feels like sunshine on the tongue. But beneath that brightness lies a danger most people have never heard of. Certain varieties of starfruit contain a neurotoxin called caramboxin, and while healthy kidneys can filter it out with ease, kidneys that are aging, stressed, or unknowingly impaired cannot. For someone with undiagnosed kidney disease, something surprisingly common among older adults, even a single fruit can be life-threatening. The first warning sign is often something deceptively small, like hiccups that won't stop. Then come confusion, tremors, seizures. Without immediate medical care, the results can be devastating. A woman I once met in Arizona shared a story that still echoes in my mind. Her husband, a retired mechanic, loved trying unusual fruits. He had planted a small starfruit tree after receiving it as a gift from a neighbor who didn't realize certain varieties were restricted in their county. One afternoon, he sliced one open and added it to a bowl of mixed fruit, expecting nothing more than a refreshing treat on a warm day. By evening, he felt disoriented. By nightfall, he was in the emergency room where doctors worked urgently to stabilize him. It was then they discovered he had early-stage kidney disease, the kind that shows almost no symptoms until something goes terribly wrong. The fruit didn't cause his illness, she told me softly, but it revealed it in the harshest way. Their story ended safely, but many do not. In states like Texas and Arizona, agricultural restrictions also exist because certain starfruit varieties can carry citrus greening disease, the same devastating illness, threatening commercial oranges and grapefruits across the South. So starfruit poses two risks, one to the body, one to the land. For older gardeners especially, it's a powerful reminder that what we plant should nourish both ourselves and the spaces around us. A fruit's beauty doesn't guarantee its safety, and our bodies, as they age, may become more sensitive to things that once seemed harmless. As we continue this journey through restricted plants, let starfruit be a gentle teacher. The loveliest things in the garden sometimes ask for a deeper understanding before we welcome them home. Now that we've walked through these 15 restricted fruits together, dear friend, I hope you feel not fearful, but empowered, more aware of the delicate dance between what grows in our gardens and what grows in the wider world. Every plant carries a story, and some, like the ones we've explored, carry risks that reach far beyond their blossoms, berries, or bright colors. Some fruits threaten our health in ways we can't see or taste. Others quietly endanger farmers who work the land to feed us. And still others reshape forests, rivers, and fields so profoundly that whole ecosystems bend beneath their weight. Yet through all of this, one truth remains: steady gardening is still one of the gentlest ways we care for the earth and care for ourselves. Knowledge simply helps us do it more safely. I think often of the grandmother from Pennsylvania, the one who unknowingly planted a restricted fruit and found herself facing steep fines for a garden she nurtured with love. Her story isn't a warning meant to scare you. It's a reminder of how easily any of us can plant something without understanding its deeper impact. We all make choices in the garden based on beauty, curiosity, or nostalgia. But as we grow older, we also grow wiser. We learn that tending the land isn't just about what we enjoy. It's about what the land can sustain, what our communities rely on, and what future generations will inherit. I've met countless gardeners over the years who've shared their stories, their mistakes, their discoveries. And what stays with me most is their willingness to adapt, to listen, and to grow with intention. So as you step into your own garden, whether it's a sprawling backyard orchard or a few cherished pots on a sunny porch, carry this knowledge with grace. Let it help you choose plants that nourish your health, respect your local ecosystem, and honor the work of farmers whose livelihoods depend on safe, disease-free crops. Gardening has never been about perfection. It's about partnership with soil, with seasons, with the quiet wisdom of nature itself. And as long as you continue gardening with curiosity and care, you're already protecting the beauty that future hands will enjoy. If you've ever encountered any of these fruits in your state, or if you've seen the landscape change because of invasive species, I'd love to hear your story. Share it below if you feel comfortable. And if you want to keep learning which plants help your garden and which ones might quietly harm it, make sure you're subscribed. Together, we'll keep growing wisely.